So some of you may know me from being a Park County person and being affiliated with the North London Mill Project. But March 22, I took a job with Colorado Preservation Inc. as their Preservation Services Director. And so that's pretty awesome. And it is in that capacity that I'm going to be talking to you right now. And I'm going to pass the mic to my colleague, Katie Peterson, and she can introduce herself.
Hi everybody, my name is Katie Peterson. I am the Endangered Places Program Director for Colorado Preservation Inc. I joined CPI in December, so I'm relatively new here, but old to Colorado. I'm 7th generation Bent County. If you guys know where that is, then great. If you don't, it's the part of Colorado they do not put on the postcards. So I will hand this back over to Kate to get started.
All right. So here is our lovely CPI staff, just so you can see our faces. Jennifer Arrigo Charles is our Executive Director. You just met Katie. Nicole Bopp is our Events and Development Manager, and then I am Preservation Services Director. And since Nicole's not here, I'm just going to talk very briefly about events and development. The main thing, I don't know. All of us, we have a staff of 4, as you can see. And so we all do lots of things. And Nicole puts together our conferences. We do a Saving Places conference, which is typically end of January, 1st of February every year. This coming year, it will be in Boulder at the Embassy Suites Hotel. We have, how many days is it usually? Like 3? It's a 3-day conference. And just amazing speakers from all over the state and then all over the country. We do call in people from other locations to share their knowledge with us about historic preservation. We do on-the-road conferences, and I'm just thinking, we should have an on-the-road conference here. So last year, it was in the San Luis Valley, and it was an amazing experience. It was really fun. And this year it was in La Junta. I had never been to La Junta, and it was just a fabulous experience. Those conferences are interesting because they are 2 days, but there are lots of tours. And so the tours are just amazing, and you get to go see some of the places that the people talk about. So, Park County, should we have an on-the-road conference? I think so. She also works on the Dana Crawford Awards. Those awards are given to people in the state of Colorado who've contributed to historic preservation. We have a number of awards. I'm not going to go through all that right now. But the big awards ceremony is typically held in May. For the past few years, it's been at the Denver Botanic Gardens, which is just an amazing place to be. They let us do it for free there so that all the money we raise does not go to pay for the venue. So that's pretty fun. And of course, Nicole also handles membership and other kinds of fundraising. So she's got a big job. All right. So I'm going to pass this over to Katie to talk about the Endangered Places program.
All right. So here's the part where I was going to introduce myself, and Kate's already talked about CPI, so I'll skip this one here. So going into a little bit of our Endangered Places program, we were founded in I don't know why this says 87, it's supposed to be 97. We were created in 1997 with the first list, Colorado's Most Endangered Places list in 1998. For those of you that are familiar with the National Trust for Historic Preservation's 11 Most Endangered Places, we are modeled after that fashion. And an endangered place doesn't have to be a building. It can be a district, a neighborhood, a structure, a landscape, or an archaeological site. And in this case, you can see in the photo here, that is the Glen Huntington Bandshell. That is in Boulder. It is one of our endangered places that was listed in 2016. Oops, let me go back. So a resource can be under a number of threats to be considered for our most endangered places list. So this can be development pressures, vandalism, natural disasters or natural deterioration, demolition by neglect, unsympathetic owners, and changing economics. But the goals and objectives of the EPP, or the Endangered Places Program, is to promote historic preservation in Colorado, to build awareness of threatened resources, to provide technical assistance to communities facing preservation problems, and provide education on sustainable preservation practices and techniques, and just really to promote community involvement through historic resources and volunteer opportunities. So moving into the Colorado's Most Endangered Places list here, since 1998, the EPP has listed 135 resources on Colorado's Most Endangered Places list. So we have 55 that are saved, 50 under what we call progress, and 22 under alert status, so those are the ones that we happen to work with the most, and only 8 lost, so I'd say we have a pretty good record here. And so nominations are accepted year-round, with that nominations closing in August for the following year for listing. And just the benefits of listing, there's economics, there's investing in existing and new uses for buildings and resources, creations of jobs, it's publicity, it's good for the resource, the organizations involved with it, and historic preservation in general. Advocacy, resources can highlight local and statewide preservation partnerships, and education. So the Endangered Places Program can educate on efforts of historic preservation and on significant events in history. So the EPP helps communities, groups, owners, and other stakeholders to organize fundraisers, find partner organizations, raise awareness for resources, and generate community support. So how the review and the nomination process works, nominations, like I said, are accepted year-round, but the cutoff is in August for the following year for listing. So individual reviewers statewide are assigned to each resource, and they will go out to the resource and interview and review and make recommendations. Then regional and statewide meetings are held to review the nominations. We're actually currently in this process at the moment. And the new list is announced at the annual Saving Places Conference during the EPP luncheon. So this will be February 1st, that is a Thursday, at our Saving Places Conference. And a benefit or a bonus of being an Endangered Places resource is the opportunity for our program to hold weekend workshops on site. So these are 2 or 3 day workshops that utilize volunteers and local community members. It is partially funded by History Colorado's State Historical Fund, where professionals in the trade give volunteers a hands-on experience in education and training in the historic building techniques. So our past workshops include the Montoya Ranch in Huerfano County. We did this one in August of this year. The Como Depot, the Lafayette Head Home in Conejos County, and the Terriel Klein Ranch here in Park County. So I will let you know that we are planning another weekend workshop in Rocky Ford here in the next couple of months. So if you do follow us on social media, you'll get that announcement here pretty soon. And if you're interested, come on down to Rocky Ford. So just to go into a little bit of our endangered places that we work with in the South Park Heritage area and greater Park County. So this is the Como Depot. I'm sure you're all very familiar with it. The Como Depot was listed in 2006 and is one of 3 surviving structures from major Denver, South Park, and Pacific Railroad cutoff. And in 2008, preservation-minded buyers purchased the property, and CPI and our Endangered Places program held our very first weekend workshop there. And in 2015, the Como Depot was officially listed as a save. And here we have the Terriel Klein Ranch. It was built in 1928 by Foster Klein Sr. He was a prominent lawyer out of Denver. And the Terriel Klein Ranch is a Park County landmark. So it is listed on Colorado's Most Endangered Places in 2018, and efforts continue to stabilize the building, protect it from the elements, and prevent vandalism on site. And here we have the Paris Mill, which is probably one of Park County's most recognizable buildings. It was constructed in 1894 at over 11,000 feet, and the Paris Mill was once an important site for processing precious metals in Buckskin Gulch. It closed in 1954 after time and unstable metal prices. So since its listing in 2004, Park County has been a champion in the Paris Mills preservation, applying and receiving several SHF or State Historical Fund grants from the state, and the site is well on its way to becoming a SAFE. And here we have the snowstorm dredge. So it has been on Colorado's most endangered places list since 2001. It is perhaps the only remaining dragline dredge in the nation, completing the work of several hundred men digging and processing ore from 1941 up until the 60s. So CPI, EPP, and the South Park National Heritage Area continue to work with private property owners to identify ways to preserve the dredge. And that's all I have. So that's my email, and this is our social media. Our number is kind of blocked by the camera there, but you can find that all on our website. And I'll hand it back to Kate.
Thanks, Katie. So I'm going to talk a little bit about preservation services. And this building here is the Iron Building in Leadville. I don't know if you've seen that building, but it's just incredible. We have a project right now with that building to redo the windows and storefronts. You can see that the storefronts have been boarded over with plywood and painted, so it doesn't look hideous or anything. But the goal of the owners is to restore the historic integrity of those storefronts and windows. So what's my job? It's a big job. It's a fun job. It drives me a little crazy sometimes. But I help property owners in a number of ways. So it can be private property owners, it can be government owners, nonprofit owners, whatever kind of property owner you might think of. So historians really help in listing properties in order to get funding to do work from State Historical Fund, and as you heard earlier today from places like the South Park National Heritage Area, you need to be designated as a landmark. And some local communities have that capability, and Park County is one of them. And when my partner Jeff and I talk later, we'll talk a little bit about our landmark nomination to the Park County list. But we also hire historians to do National Register nominations and State Register nominations for properties. Assemble teams of architects, engineers, contractors, and archaeologists, all of whom specialize in historic preservation. So also part of my job is to work with those teams to phase complex projects. The cost of preserving historic buildings and historic structures, industrial, commercial, maybe less so residential, it's just cost prohibitive for people. And getting grants is really important. And there's only so much grant money to go around. So you often have to decide what your priorities are, what are your critical deficiencies, and what needs to be done first, and what can get funded first. So helping to phase projects is also part of my job. I write grants for doing state and national register nominations, for doing planning documents like structural assessments, construction documents, schematic designs, etc., and for construction. I administer and manage those grants. I help to manage the project teams. If they don't happen to be communicating with one another, I get in the middle and say, hey, we got to meet, we have to talk. And as a new service, we're starting to prepare state tax credit applications. So there are different kinds of Colorado historic preservation tax credits, and one of the most popular and visible programs is for a commercial tax credit, and that's for buildings and properties that are going to be producing income or that already produce income. There are programs for private homeowners whose homes are listed as historic, and there is some eligibility for tax credits there. So that's a very little known program. Most people think it has to be commercial and income producing, and it does not necessarily. So there's that. And here's just a list of current projects, and as you can see, they're pretty much all over the state. Some of these are privately owned, some of these are Forest Service owned, some of them are like county buildings. I'm not going to go through all these, but you can just see what they are. And you'll see down in the right-hand corner International Archaeology Day, which we put together and are partnering with Jasmine and Jessica, who you heard from earlier, to do International Archaeology Day. It's going to be at Red Rocks Park, and it is October 21st. At what time?
8:30 to 1:30.
8:30 to 1:30. And Colorado Preservation Inc. has secured the liquor license to sell a heritage beer. And we will get all the proceeds from that beer. And so we're pretty excited about that. And it's just cool that they're brewing a special heritage beer for this event. So really looking forward to that. And I just wanted to show like a few of the projects that I'm working on. There are so many, and there are so many gorgeous photographs, and it was 11:30 last night. Everybody's talking about 11:30 last night, working on their slides. I know, I heard you say that, Kara. Well, that was happening with us too, or with me, and then Jeff and I also. So this is the Fox Theater in Walsenburg, and the history of this theater is so interesting, and I'm not gonna like go into the whole thing, but it was first built as the Star Theater, then it became the Valencia Theater, and then Fox bought the theater. And when Fox bought the theater, they added this whole Art Deco design on the front of it. And there's just such a curious thing about this building. This Art Deco stuff on the facade of the building is pulling on the building and, you know, kind of pulling on the roof and the parapet and making a big mess. And it's on the state register, and its period of significance ends in 1941 when Fox bought it and renovated it. Yet it's determined that the owners, which is basically Huerfano County, can't take down the facade. They want to take it back to its original facade. So this is a huge controversy and just an interesting thing. The intricacies of what you can and cannot do with state historical fund money. I mean, it's not so restrictive that most property owners don't want to do it, but sometimes it is. And sometimes there are clashes with priorities and desires. Here's a new project that I've been working on in Trinidad. And this is the Bloom Block. Frank Bloom was one of the founders of Trinidad. He has several buildings that he built in Trinidad, and in fact, the Trinidad Museum is housed in his residence. This was a building that he built as a commercial building, and I wish I had the photograph of, there's a parade, there's a historic photograph of a parade to free Mother Jones from prison. And I think that's pretty cool. And so you can see what the building looks like right now, and the owners of the building want to restore the windows and the storefronts as they are in that historic photograph. We've got our first round of grants to do some facade work, and they're waiting for their disbursement of tax credits so that they have the matching funds to move forward with this. And then this is the Anheuser-Busch building in Leadville. And you might recognize it. The only historic photograph that I could find is this kind of brown and beige one from 1981. And I have scoured photographs of Harrison Avenue in Leadville to try to find a better, older historic photograph. Still can't do it. If anybody has any leads, I'd be happy to hear them. And then the photograph on the right is what it looks like right now. And so if you look closely at the right-hand lower side of the building, you can see that there are doorways and windows that are covered by the sidewalk. So the city of Leadville did a lot of that work. I forget what year it was they did that work. But part of what we're trying to do is to restore those entrances and exits and windows and some other facade work and exterior work because people work down there. And actually, there's not an exit. And so that's a little scary. And so we're trying to work with the city of Leadville to allow them to uncover those historic windows and those historic entrance exits for safety reasons and aesthetic reasons. So there's that. And I have so much more I could share, but I don't want to take up a whole lot of time doing that. But I do want to let you know that if you have a historic place that you are interested in saving, we can certainly help you. Well, certainly, I don't know about certainly, but we can very possibly help you. And that can come in a number of ways. If the property is endangered for some of the reasons that Katie might have said, a listing on the endangered places list might be helpful to bring attention to the building. If it's not really in danger in those kinds of ways, then I can help you figure out how to phase a project, how to get funding for a project, how to get tax credits if you're not eligible or you don't want to deal with funding from grants, because that comes with its own interesting complications. But anyway, there's our phone number right there. I have cards. Katie has cards. And Katie has brochures for the Endangered Places program. And we are very happy to share those. And we're happy to take questions. Yes?
How do you relate to History Colorado? And secondly, what sort of, are you guys a subset of a state agency, completely independent, or what sort of organization are you?
We are completely independent. We're a nonprofit organization. And we were formed in 1984. Yeah, 1984. So next year is our 40th anniversary. We are not part of History Colorado State Historical Fund, but since 1990, we have received over $12 million in grant funds from the State Historical Fund for property owners. And they help fund our annual conference, but we still have to write a competitive proposal to do that. So they don't give us money, we have to write grants to compete for money, just like anybody else does. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Yes.
So there's a state historical registry, is that correct?
Yes.
Where you can designate a building or something as a historic site. How is your listing jive with that? Are they two entirely different things? Or?
How does the endangered places listing relate to that? You want to answer that?
So our endangered places list is a completely different set of requirements as well. So in order to receive state historical funds, the property needs to be at least, is it local too?
Local designation.
Okay, it needs to be a local, state, or national designation. To be on the endangered places list, it does not need to be on the register. And we actually do have a couple of resources that we are working with now to get on that national register to get funding from the State Historical Fund. So it is completely different. And there, as far as national register goes, there are different levels. Is Park County, do they have the ability to list locally?
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually a lot easier to save a historic place if it is listed locally, because then counties or towns are able to put, say, hey, no, this place is important, we don't want you to tear it down. If it is a state and national, it is a little harder for communities to fight for preservation of these resources. So just a quick answer, yes, we are a different list.
Mm-hmm. And I would just like to add to that a little bit. In some communities, if you are listed locally as a landmark, sometimes the restrictions on what you can and cannot do with your property are more stringent than they are at the state or national level, which is Maybe a little counterintuitive, but not really. I mean, a local designation means that the local community has a stake in the preservation of that building. And so citizens of that community have some say in what happens to your building and what you do with it and don't do with it, et cetera. And that's not true of all communities that have the ability to locally list. Sometimes local listing communities don't place those kinds of restrictions on people. Some do, some don't. Does that help you
It
think
helps.
through that?
Yeah.
Great. Anybody else? Yeah.
I don't have a question, but I do have a suggestion. The county attorney, Erin Smith, grew up in Leadville. You might want to reach out to her and see if she has some pictures, because she's a longtime family up there.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Anything Leadville related, ask her.
Great, great. Those sidewalks. Yeah. Thanks. Anybody else? All right. Thank you so much for your time.